Hey everybody, welcome to the second segment of Black Spring with Autumn on your Wednesday. And today I have a bit of a segment for you that you of course won't hear on the mainstream media, but it's regarding the US national debt. Now, with the election cycle in full swing, you can probably guess which party is not discussing the debt except for when they want to debunk or discredit the other opponent's healthcare plan, socialist healthcare plans. So today I'm bringing you a segment from our vetted source, The New American. I thank everybody for being here with me on this segment. And this particular article comes from, of course, The New American. And this is entitled, National Debt is $122 trillion, not $23 trillion, says a nonprofit group. This is written by Bob Adelman. So, we begin here with, when Epoch Times' Mark Tapscott checked the U.S. Treasury's, quote, debt to the penny, end quote, website on Monday, he reported that the U.S. national debt just ticked over to $23.3 trillion. That's 4 times what it was 20 years ago. Tapscott then checked in with the Chicago-based nonprofit advocacy group Truth in Accounting, TIA, to get a more accurate reading. Said Bill Bergman, the group's director of research, the Treasury misses the real national debt by $100 trillion, explaining that the U.S. Treasury does not include the unfunded obligations for Social Security and Medicare. That's because those obligations can only be counted when they become liabilities. And because Congress can change that law at any time, said Bergman, the Treasury gets to hide the real number, said Bergman. Quote, the reasoning has been that the government controls the law and can change it at any time. An actuary from Social Security spelled out the deception at a public hearing in 2007. Quote, it is the government's right and ability to alter potential future benefits until benefits become due and payable. There's no binding commitment over which a worker has control, and so no liability can be recognized, end quote. Continue. Even that $122 trillion number is suspect, according to a Boston University professor, Lawrence Kotlikoff. In an interview with Joseph Lawler, editor of the Real Clear policy, Kotlikoff measured the, quote, fiscal gap, end quote, a tool used for generational accounting purposes, to conclude that real national debt is closer to $222 trillion, said Kotlikoff. Quote, that's what we economists call the fiscal gap. What you have to do is look at the present value of all the government promises from now through the end of time. All projected expenditures, including services or servicing the national debt. And then you subtract all the projected taxes. The present value of the difference is $222 trillion. That conversion took place 8 years ago in 2012. When the credit ratings agency Standard & Poor's downgraded the country's credit rating one notch from a AAA to AA+ on August 5, 2011, it explained, the downgrade reflects our view that the effectiveness, the stability, and predictability of American policymaking and political institutions have weakened at a time of ongoing fiscal and economic challenges to a degree more than we envisioned when we assigned a negative outlook to a rating on April 18th of 2011. Since then, we have changed our view of the difficulties in bridging the gulf between the political parties over fiscal policy, which make us pessimistic about the capacity of Congress and the administration to be able to leverage their agreement this week into a broader fiscal consolidation plan that stabilizes the government's debt dynamics at any time soon. 3 days later, Terry McGraw, the chairman of McGraw-Hill, which owned Standard & Poor's at the time, received a phone call from the then Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. Geithner told McGraw that S&P's conduct would be looked at very carefully. Such behavior would not occur. 2 years later, the U.S. Treasury exacted its retribution from Standard & Poor's by suing it for fraud. The message was delivered, as Tyler Durden, writing in Zero Hedge in 2014, expressed it, quote, none of this comes as a surprise, and it has been well known for a long time that the only reason the U.S. Department of Justice targeted only S&P and not Moody's or Fitch, which kept their ratings of the U.S. Treasury debt at a AAA, is precisely due to Geithner's vendetta with S&P, end quote. Added Durden, of course, this kind of selective punishment simply means that nobody else will dare touch the U.S. ratings ever again, or speak badly against the sovereign in a public medium for fears of retaliation. The question remains, how much longer can this go on, and how will it end? Some are researching, or some are suggesting, that the mechanism of inflating the currency presently in place at the Federal Reserve will, over time, reduce the future value of the outstanding obligations to a more manageable size. Others are suggesting that eventually the U.S. Treasury will be forced to declare bankruptcy when no more buyers for its debt can be found. But that is a long time in the future, simply because the U.S. government debt remains, quote, the cleanest dirty shirt on the line when compared to other sovereign debt around the world. The U.S. Treasuries remain the best of a bad lot. Still others, such as economy and author John Malden, are predicting a quote, great reset, explains Malden. We are coming to a period I call the Great Reset. As it hits, we will have to deal, one way or another, with the largest twin bubbles in the history of the world: global debt, especially government debt, and the even larger bubble of government promises. All that debt cannot be repaid under current arrangements, nor can the promises ultimately be kept. There's simply not enough money and not enough growth, and these bubbles continue to grow. At some point, we're going to have to deal with these issues and restructure everything. One thing is certain, Kolikoff's, quote, fiscal gap cannot expand forever without consequences. The place to start is to know just how large that gap really is. Okay, so that is a bit to chew on, I have to say, myself, which also, just for kicks, I thought maybe we could take a look at just one other item. Just one other item here. We can take a look at the U.S. debt clock, the usdebtclock.org. And of course, you can see a breakdown of many of the taxes, the income securities, the social securities. You can see the defense/war. You will be able to see all of these things on the U.S. debt clock. Of course, that number is ticking. You can see that number ticking, but then here again, this is my tag on this particular piece. We have discussed, or at least on this show and previous videos, I've talked about the constitutional index, or that of the freedom index, which shows a record of the way that Congress has voted. And we, on one particular video, we went up to 10 different congressmen. Of course, we did Senate, we did Republicans, and we did Democrats. And if you check that video, if you go back into that particular video, you will see that many of the congressmen or congresswomen are not voting. They are not fiscally responsible. And that goes for the Democrat side as well as the actual Republicans. They're not voting responsibly. The fiscal responsibility, it's absolutely out of control. And I mean, and when it comes to disasters and rebuilding other nations, and they have an enumerated number of powers. They're actually allowed to raise money to pay debts, provide for common defense and general welfare. And there are many things that they are doing outside of that, which makes this Congress, the 116th Congress, fiscally irresponsible. Now, I could go into a specific congressperson or not. I mean, I think we just took a look at maybe, okay, just for one, Nancy Pelosi. And you could probably very well see that Nancy Pelosi her score is very much failing in terms of her overall congressional score. Okay, she's a Democrat, of course, the House Speaker, and she's got an 18% particular rate, like budget deals. You know, many of these deals are spending that needs to be brought, that reveal the spending that needs to be brought under control, the deficits eliminated to avoid fiscal disaster. You know, because the spending that they do is really unconstitutional. So that's just generally what I'm bringing out. But I ran into a lot of appropriation bills. Like, say, for instance, there was a common appropriations bill that many of the senators voted, both sides, bipartisan, they voted quite, they had bad votes on those particular measures. So you can do this for yourself. You can always take a look at thenewamerican.com and check the index for yourself. That was HR 4378 was the short-term appropriations, and the ding on this is that they're saying that Congress is failing to address the fiscal and constitutionally they are irresponsible with the budgets and appropriation process that's yielding annual federal deficits at about $1 trillion that contributes directly to the dramatic growth of the, quote, $23 trillion in national debt. So, of course, you can always go and visit that particular site yourself at any time. And as always, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me on this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. And of course, please let me know, please like if you do, and if you could please hit the bell for notifications. And if you want, always please include those comments and concerns and let me know what you think about where we are in terms of those debt limits, and what does it mean to the economy. And I don't know, what do you say? Should you be investing in gold and silver, or what do you think at this time? And once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me for this segment of Black Spring with Autumn. Have a great day.